It's time for the Blazor Power Hour.
Welcome to the Blazor Power Hour.
Introducing the Blazor Power Hour.
No, seriously, it's time for Blazor Power Hour.
Hey friends, it's time for the Blazor Power Hour.
Hello everybody, and welcome to the Blazor Power Hour.
You're checking out the Blazor Power Hour.
Welcome to the Blazor Power Hour.
It's Blazor Power Hour. Go Ed!
Are you ready? Are you set? Got everything all ready to go? Let's do it. Let's do the Blazor Power Hour.
Hello, friends. Welcome to the Blazor Power Hour. Each week, we explore some Blazor frequently asked question or interesting bit of advice for about an hour. So this week, I thought it'd be fun to look at something that is a bit of a UX pattern. I have a couple actually to go over, but one of them is called an empty state. So if you're not familiar with empty states, you should be. You should be. We're gonna take a look at what this is. Let me get my screen share up, and we'll do the good old-fashioned Google search real quick, and just show some examples. This is a pretty common pattern in practice these days, but if you don't know what I'm talking about, let's get a little visual going. So an empty state in user experience is when you have a page that you're expecting some sort of data on, but it has no results. So you could show some fancy little graphic and let people know that there's no data on the page, but I like to take things a little bit further with this. There's some really good examples. This is a good one here where we're showing there's no item on the page, so we're going to go ahead and show where you can start with some templates. Microsoft's really good at this with like their Office tools, PowerPoint and things do empty states really well. The idea being you don't want to just show a blank page. You want to show folks how to get started and offer up some sort of a button. Here's a good one by Paperly. So instead of showing that there are no folders, it's got a nice welcome message and a button to start creating a folder or create an empty sample folder or show one. So that's a good example right there of an empty state. Doesn't have to be elaborate, probably even shouldn't be elaborate. The basic idea here is if you have no records, show the user how to create one or get started with the tool. And I really like this because it gives people a cue as to what they're supposed to do. Sam, I'm not ignoring the wonderful chat room. Just Bing, really? Bing? Is that still is Bing still a thing? Is that online? Is that So that's not a 404. Bing.com. Oh my gosh, it's still there. I bet Yahoo's still there too these days. Just giving Sam a little bit of a hard time. He's a big Bing fan. Anyhow, I was expecting something like this from Bing.com. Oh snap! There's nothing at this location. Anyway, enough teasing Bing. It'll be the butt of my jokes until it goes offline. Bing probably powers like a lot of stuff behind the scenes. I'm giving it like a really hard time, but it's probably there doing things that we don't know about inside of Windows and Office and all of those great tools that I use. So anyhow, we've got an example application that I've purposely staged to do some things like have long loading times for certain features and maybe even throw exceptions once in a while just to make sure we're on our toes. I based this example off of a page at demos.telerik.com. I'm going to be using the Telerik UI components in here. The patterns I'm showing you are doable without the components. So if you're not interested in the components for some reason or another, you could still get a lot out of the show, I think. So in the list view components, you'll see a demo similar to what I'm doing with the show today. And this is where I grabbed the demo from. If you don't have these demos and you want to get them, if you run the full installer and check the box that says install demos, you will get these on disk that you can run locally, and you can poach some of this demo code for yourself. And there is also the view source tab, so you can borrow it from there too. So I borrowed this list view layout and some of the data that came along with it, and kind of wrap that in some services. I'm going to use server-side Blazor today just because the debugging experience is a little bit easier on that for me. So you might see some server-side Blazor aspects of this, but this applies to both server and client Blazor. So I've got the trending articles for this week, and in this list there is an add to favorites button. So if I click on one or two of these items and then I go to my favorites tab, you'll notice there's a little bit of a delay there. That is on purpose. I'm trying to simulate maybe a slow connection, or maybe the service has some work to do. So that is a simulated delay. But now I have my favorites, so I can add and remove those items. Well, apparently I can't remove the items. They're a permanent fixture because reasons, I don't know. Maybe there's a state has changed or something missing here. But the point being is I have add to favorites, and then I have a list of favorites. Oh, and look, I have an exception being thrown down here at the bottom of the screen. So I'm going to take a look and see what this exception says. I have an exception of Chaos Monkey exception has occurred. So I've thrown exceptions in here on purpose that randomly pop up from time to time to make sure that we're handling our exceptions. So let's take a look at the code. We've only got an hour. We got some work to do, so let's get started here. And you may see Visual Studio lock up again from time to time. I still haven't figured out why it's doing this to me. I think it's just torturing me for no good reason. Maybe it has a Chaos Monkey too. But let's go over to our favorites view for a moment, and let's do a little work on our favorites view. So we have this page that, let's refresh here to get rid of our little Chaos Monkey error. Let's reboot the app actually. Let's do it from here. Let's see if this will clear. There we go. Nope, that did not work. I need to shut her down. I've got some state management happening here that I want to refresh and renew. So I want to start this page with no favorites to show you what it looks like. So we've got trending articles. We haven't selected any favorites, and our Chaos Monkey is going to show up again. There we go. Oh, come on. How dare you keep that in memory? Let's see. Where is IIS hiding? All right, we are going to stop all sites. And we will try to run this one more time without my favorites being saved. Because that is the point of the show, is to show that we have no favorites. There we go. Just like I tell the kids, I have no favorites. This page says your favorites, but then it says 0 items of 0 items. And we've got paging for nothing. This is not a good user experience to give to our users. There's a couple things that we want to do with this. What we probably want to do here, so I'll use my little fancy zoom and annotate tool, is not show this here, and instead show some sort of screen here, maybe with a button that takes you back to the home page or something, and some sort of text that tells people what this page is for and how it works. So your favorites go here, type of thing, and then maybe we'll take a little screenshot of the home page and identify where that favorites button is and show that image or something else. Anything else is probably better than the empty state that we have now, right? So let's do a couple things here first. We have an exception that keeps getting thrown from time to time, and this is actually coming off of the home page when it's searching for our favorites. So we have a network problem of some sort. This is a simulated issue, so it's actually coming across as a Chaos Monkey exception. So every once in a while we get this error, and it's hitting that error as it's trying to load our favorites. This is some sort of error that we need to trap and make sure that the user, doesn't have this experience where they're trying to visit the page and it doesn't load. So let's take care of this really quick. This is something that I like to do. It's a very simple pattern that I can implement quickly to have kind of a loaded and failed state. So first thing we're going to do is set up a couple flags here. And we'll say is loading, and then we'll say bool has errors. Okay, so we've got 2 flags that we can set, and then we can show some things in the UI. And I bet you cannot see this very well, so we'll bump that font up a little bit. But let me know if you can't see these things when in chat, folks. I am watching chat. I see the comments coming through, folks. So please let me know if you can't see something. Let's see. We need to do something while we're loading data to check for this error. We could wrap a big fat try-catch block around this. We're going to do that, but we're going to do it in a more intelligent way. I'm going to set up a quick function to wrap this up and make it nice. So I'm going to create a method here called try get async, or try load data async. So this is going to be a task. It's going to try to load the data. And what it's going to do is it's going to give us either some data back, which is going to be a list of articles, because that is what our news feed contains. Oops, suggest. Success, or it's going to come back with that exception that we keep seeing. And there is going to be some sort of error. So we're going to try loading data, and we're going to pass that data, or this function, to delegates. And we're going to try, and we should set up a placeholder variable here real quick. We're going to try to get some articles. So that's going to be our data. And we are going to await that data. Data service, get, we're going to get the, we're going to get favorites. This is a very simple demo. Normally, you'd have some sort of like user ID or something you might be passing in here. This is just all the favorites. We're just going to get all the favorites. Nothing real specific, but you can use your imagination. And then when we are successful, we're going to go ahead and pass that data along to the delegate. And then when we catch it, we're going to actually do something with it. So we might maybe do some logging here. Or actually, no, we'd actually do the logging in the errors. Hang on a sec. I'm getting ahead of myself. So we take the exception, which we need to capture up here, and we'll pass that along to the failing function. So this is just a light wrapper that gives us some structure for our code here. And then we'll keep our loading data method here, but we're going to create two handlers with it. So the first thing we want to say is void load data success. So this will be our success path. And our success path, if you look at our method signature here, it's an action that's going to take a list of articles. So it's going to be receiving this list of articles as data, and we want to do something with that data. So we're up here, we're going to move this type of logic down to our success function. So favorites is going to equal data, and then we can say that our loading is complete. So loading is false, and errors is false. So now we've done our task, and we can go ahead and clean up those flags. So when we go up in our UI and use those flags, we can set the state appropriately in our view. Now let me go back and double check on chat here for a moment. And it looks like we're doing good there. Please feel free to ask questions, though. I am monitoring that. We need to handle the failed state now, so we'll do a very similar thing here. We'll say void load data errors. And in here, we would do our logging and whatnot if we had some logging functions going on. We are on the client. It is Blazor server, but you could imagine this works on WebAssembly as well. So how you handle your logging on the client, I don't know if there's any common patterns for that, but one might imagine that if you're offline, you can't really report back. If that's the exception, is you're offline, you can't really report back to your server. So you may have to store that locally until the client comes back online, things like that. You would do some sort of logging here, maybe send an angry email to a developer on the team, who knows, but you'd have to clean that up somehow. We're not going to have any data, so we'll go ahead and null that favorites list out, and then we'll set our has errors flagged to true. And I'm going to go ahead and move this is loading off as well. We'll take the is loading and we will complete that in this block here, which let's see, we probably need a finally to wrap that up, otherwise it may not execute. All right, so now we've got favorites are being either loaded or not, and we're flagging that we have some errors. We need to take advantage of our new function now, and instead of just calling await load data, we're going to say await try. Or actually, nope, we're going to keep that one there. My mistake again. We're going to say await try load data, and then we'll say load data success and load data error. And this will handle our two paths for us. So now every time we call load data, we're reassuring that, let's see if we get that to go away. There we go. We're reassuring that we're handling both the success and the failure paths there. And then we can refactor this out a little bit. We don't really need these async and await keywords. And we should be able to just pass back. Let's see if I get that. There we go, as a Lambda expression. So we'll keep the uninitialized to be await load data, and we'll keep all this here. I'm not going to move it, the entire try load data up here, because we want to set up another way to call that try load, because the user is probably going to need to activate that somehow. So what we can do up here is we could say if, and put in a proper if statement. We can say if has errors, then we can show maybe an alert box or something like that. We'll say alert and alert danger. These are Bootstrap shortcuts I'm using here. Or alert warning, I think it is. One of the two. And then we can put in a friendly error message. I would go with something something that tries to skew this in a positive way. But basically you want to let the user try again. And what we can do here is we can give a on click event, and we'll wire that back up to the load data button. So now we have a way to try again if something goes wrong. And then let's try our page out. And see if we can get this chaos monkey to show back up. Oops, this is my notes. I don't know why Chrome insists on putting the browser tab on the screen I never use, but it always does that. So we'll refresh this a few times, and we should be able to catch that error. There we go. Something went wrong, try again. We could pretty this up a little bit. Maybe we won't show our favorites screen, but now we can at least try again, and we can make that page a little bit cleaner. And we've done a good thing for the user as far as user experience goes. So we'll pop an else in here, and then we'll wrap our list view component inside of that else statement. So now, if that error pops up again, it'll hide the empty list, and it will show our error message. And we have viewers from all the way from Romania. I think we probably have some folks from our team at Telric in the audience too, possibly. Mr. Magoo, I can't remember if you're from across in Europe. Is it, are you in the UK? I can't remember. We've got folks from all over watching the show. This is the best part of live streaming is this nice international audience we get. Love it. Copper Beardy's here as well. We got some regulars in the chat room today. All right, So we are working on, we've got an error pattern here. We could beautify this a little bit as well, throw a little bit of a button class on it. And that will make that look a lot nicer. We could also use a Telerik button in there, or a Telerik alert box as well. We have new notification panels in that. So we do have a Telerik list view here, which currently doesn't have anything in it. So we need to look at empty state as well. And one of the things that this empty state is providing, or this pattern is already providing for us, is the fact that it's giving us more cues about the state of the page overall. So we do know if the page is loading, and we do know whether it has errors or not. So, Curious Drive, you're killing me, buddy. Didn't know news item existed from a list view component. So I should probably explain a little bit. In my list view component, I have a template, and news item is a custom component. For those who aren't familiar, I know Curious Drive's just playing around because he knows the list view component, but that is just a custom component that I've wrapped inside of a couple parameters, so I can set the news article and then throw a button inside of it with a quick template. Mr. Magoo. Poor Mr. Magoo, sad about Brexit. Marin, yeah, you've got problem with an empty chat? Not sure why. Oh, complaining fixed. That always helps with me. I always complain about something and then it clears up. So now that I've handled these errors with this pattern, I've also benefited by knowing the state of the page. If I didn't have this set up, and whether I had an error or not, and I had an empty list of articles, then it doesn't really help me understand whether the page is loading. I really don't know the state of the page without putting some sort of pattern in place to let me know that the data is actually loading. It's not just empty. So it could have been a successful fetch and got nothing back, and I would never know that's why I am in an empty state. So now we have a little bit of a building block that we can take to get to the empty state. Tofu Lock, you need to pick your favorites better, my friend. Glad to have you here. So that was an old example. That error's not going to come up for us anymore. I wish Chrome would open tabs in the right location. So what we're going to do next is we have a little bit of a lag here when we're loading. You could see it takes a couple seconds to pull the favorites in the articles. So another thing that we want to do is make sure that we're notifying the user that the page is loading. And for that, I'm going to reach back into my Telerik UI bag of tricks because we have a component that is going to help us with that as well. So in my Telerik components, I have a loading container that I can use. So we'll go ahead and set up one of those. So I have a loading container, and I can say is loading. This is a little copy and paste off of our website, by the way. Loading container, go ahead and show a loading container on the page if this is in a loading state. So now I can make my user aware of what's happening on that page. Let's try a little, we need to rebuild this one. Yeah, let's try to reload the page here. And I am not getting my loading state for some reason. It may be a CSS thing. or I'm not. Oh, I see what it is. I've never set up the loading. Never set my loading flag to true, so it's always going to be false. And I can feel Visual Studio grinding to a halt. So like I said, every now and then it likes to lock up on me. And I think it has something to do with this whole reconnecting scenario maybe. So we'll go ahead and close that browser out. And while it tries to get its bearings back in order, I'm going to show you the loading animation that I was trying to get working. So if you go to demos.telerik.com, you will see the loader and loader container controls. So loaders are very nice. They let us do various loading animations on our application, and you have full control over how this renders on the page. This is the one that I borrowed from. I said I had a quick copy and paste from this, and I just grabbed this loader component here and tossed it on my page. Now, let's see, Visual Studio's back. Visual Studio's happy again. So we can go back and hopefully this loads and it put it on the right page for me. And you can see the loading animation came up there. I'll go back and forth and you can see every time that page loads now, it shows that we're doing some work behind the scenes. And there's our error handler as well. So if something went wrong, we can try again. And when I click load, now we're loading and our empty state is there. Our ugly, unhappy empty state. Our very bare bones, plain empty state. So that's what we need to get to. That was part of the point of the show, is to get to those empty states. But to get there, we had to set up some other criteria first, because we really need to know when that is truly empty. I come in peace, I promise. I don't believe you, because you asked what I'm working on, Eagle, and I am not working on a unit test. I have no tests, and I know you're going to say something about that. And before I could even say it, you've pointed it out. I knew where this was going. I knew where this was going. So we don't need tests, because we're just displaying a nice yellow banner to users when something goes wrong, to let them know something went wrong and to try again. That's what we really need to do, right? So to wrap up where we're at so far, we have a homepage that has a list of articles on it, which this needs a loader as well, because this service is a little bit slow, and we need to display something to the user. But we have the ability to add things to favorites. And then when we go to our favorites page, it will load our favorites. But when that loading page is empty, we need to show something in its place that is a little bit better than an empty list. So let's work on that next. So I'm going to hit Control F5 here again and get this loaded back up one more time. I wanted to make sure I cleared out my favorites page. Let's double check that. Yeah, so we want to replace that. So trending articles this week. What we want to do here is maybe take a screenshot of this so we can show the user how they can add something to a favorites. And a screenshot's not a bad idea. You might, if you have graphics people, or UX people, they probably have already established some sort of mock-ups for you, and hopefully they are the ones thinking of empty states and not developers. But not all of us have the luxury of having a designer and UX person or both on our team. So sometimes we have to handle these things ourselves. And what we want to do here, and if I could get the right, my program's not coming up. I'll use Snagit here. This is just a very quick and easy way. It's not the right one. Maybe Snagit editor. Yeah, we'll pull it into the Snagit editor real quick. Oh, that's fun. This is from a past show. If you're not watching the show regularly, you're probably like, what the hell's going on here? That is from a previous show where we were having some fun. So let's see, from clipboard, there we are. And then we'll show, let's go ahead and show users really quick on how to get this, or where the favorites are added. This is not the prettiest way, but it is better than what we have. We'll go ahead and save that. And geez, that is fun. I'm going to throw this just directly on the desktop for a moment. Empty state.jpg will work. That'll be that's fine. That is enough. We just need an image for our demo. So you could do this in components and CSS as well. An image works. An image works too for just something quick like this. I would suggest if you are going to use an image, make sure you set the alt attributes to describe what is in the image to help users that can't see the image understand what you're pointing out in it. Otherwise, you can use a mock-up of the UI and describe it that way. And then let's go ahead and we just need to paste in our image from the desktop here. We'll go ahead and just throw that into images. And then we need to set up some sort of view here. We want to put this inside of this if statement here, and we'll go ahead and say if we need to describe how this is an empty state, and I'm going to just put a little shortcut method in here that returns a Boolean value and says is empty state. And then we will return favorites. And we'll say any. And we should know favorites should not be null because we are inside of the loop that has no errors. So we should be okay here. Is empty state. If it's an empty state, we want to do something. We want to show our empty state here. I don't have a class for it, and it's trying to fill one in. So we'd want to show our empty state here, and we'll toss our image in here as well. Image, the source is going to be, I love that we get IntelliSense here because I could not remember where exactly that was. So very temporarily, we'll just throw the image on the screen until we can improve on that. And then we can go ahead and display our list if we have data. What's nice though is before we got to this point, if the list was either null or empty, our list view component handles that internally and still shows. So the component itself isn't going to like throw an exception or error out. It is at least going to fail gracefully and display that there's no data there. Okay, just giving chat a little checkup there, make sure that there aren't any questions so far. And then we're going to go back and check our favorites page. And we loaded, but for some reason we have data. We don't have data. So let's see how, oh, I forgot. No, it is an empty state. The logic is broken down here. So if favorites do not contain anything, then we have an empty state. So let's try that again. There we go. So we probably need to wrap a message around this, right? We need to tell folks that, something friendly about you don't have any favorites. This is where you can add them. So we want to go in here and put in some sort of message. We'll throw this in an H tag, just give it a title. Let's try to spin this positive. And I'm not really great at these messages on the fly, but we'd want to put something in here that kind of describes what you're going to do to add favorites. So to add your favorites to this list. Click add favorites from the home page. We can do a lot better at describing that, but you're getting the fundamentals here. This is where we want to put this UX. Curious Drive, just thinking how we could do this at the app level instead of the component level. Interesting. Yeah, this is something I think you would want to do application wide. Your messages, I think, are going to vary depending on your functionality. We've got also some CSS we could tap into here. Let's see if we can spruce this up just a tiny bit. We've got a few extra minutes now, and we're getting well on track here. So let's go into Site CSS, and let's see if we can maybe center this a little bit or something. So we've got in our code, we've got a div called empty state. Let's describe this just a little bit better, because as Curious Drive pointed out, we may have more than one of these. So this is our favorites empty state, and our favorites empty state is going to be here, and then we could pretty this up a little bit. Let's try div. I think we might have to throw. Maybe we're trying to think if we have to throw a wrapper around this. I think so. So we'll go ahead and throw. Oh, that one might be reserved. We'll throw content or body. Anything would work here. May or may not need that wrapper, but I'm just making sure so this works the first time. I could always go back and refactor that later. Empty state. The div itself is going to be a flex display. Display flex. And then we can say, I'm trying to remember how this works, justify content, center, and then align content center as well. And I think that will center it within that block on the page. Let's go back and refresh that and see if that was a success. We got halfway there. Didn't center it horizontally or vertically, but we got it horizontally here. So let's take a look and see if we can get that to work. So the empty state container here is only so big, so it doesn't take up enough space on the page. So we might have to set a height value for this to center if this matters to us. Height 100% is not working. I know view height's probably going to be too much, and it's going to add. It did add scroll bars. I wish Alyssa was here to help me. She would know what to do in a situation like this. So my CSS on this is a little rusty. We should be able to vertically align this too. Maybe I have the wrong. I thought it was aligned content. Yeah, I don't have it spanning the whole height of the page. This gives you an idea, though. We could center this with a little bit more CSS code. I don't want to get stuck on that for too long. Pull the alignment out of that for a second. We'll leave that centered for just a minute. So we have this. Let's add some more functionality here. So when we're in our empty state, we have a button that at least takes us back to the home page. So we can build that in very easily and just say button. Actually, we don't need to unclick here. We need an anchor tag will work just fine. And we can point ourselves back home. And we can say, you can just say go to home here. If we go back and refresh our app now, we go to our favorites page. It's empty, and we need to align our button properly. So we don't have our button lined up where it belongs. Actually, throwing this inside of a paragraph is a quick fix that will get that to give it its own row inside of this area. All right. Something else that probably could be aligned better. Not trying to open the command line. All right. So what we need to do here, let's try throwing this in a div, and we'll give it a class of say empty favorite state actions in case we end up with more than one, and then we'll have our button here, and let's give this a little bit of style too. Say button, button. I like some of the outline styles myself for things like this. So it won't be too dominant on the page. So we'll throw a button class around that, and then in our CSS, we can go ahead and center that guy up too. Let's try a justify center again. Justify is going to go horizontally and center horizontally. And we should be able to come back. I think I forgot to hit save on my markup. Let's go ahead and make sure this is display flex. So it will inherit that centering ability the right way. There we go. And of course, we probably need some vertical spacing here as well. Not going to worry about that right this second. So this should take us back home. So now we have a little bit of a workflow. So we see our page loading. We see a message now that says to add favorites. Go to your home page and click on the add favorites button here. So we can go home. And we're not handling the exception on our home page. So our Chaos Monkey has reared its ugly head again. We're handling the error on the favorites page. The error has happened on the page we're navigating to. Therefore, we just hit that exception and it's unhandled. So we want to do the same pattern on our home page as well. So let's try that again. I think the state of the app's just hung. After those unhandled exceptions happen, they're a bad thing. You don't want to have those in your app. So that's why I suggest making sure you're doing checks, especially if you're using HTTP, because it's unreliable. So we've got our workflow now. We can load, we can go back home. We have a nice message here that tells us that we can come here. We could try to maybe one-up this again and put in some kind of hooks. I don't have a complete like pattern to show you. I have some suggestions that I can make that you might be able to take in your own direction. This is something I've seen sites handle many different ways. I like some of them have like little tours, like they have little tutorials that can pop up and show you where components are and kind of highlight features. I think that is like super cool. It does take a lot of work to implement that. There may be some other things that we can do. So let's throw a little CSS snippet in here and we'll play with that for a moment. So what we can do is maybe highlight for users that we want to kind of give them a cue as to where something is. And again, accessibility is good. There's going to be some give and take around who would be able to benefit from an animation like this. So keep that in mind as well. This is just a suggestion to kind of play with and do some more groundwork yourself on what we can really accomplish here. I'm going to up this time just a little bit. So I pasted in a little tiny bit of CSS here, and it's very, very simple in what it does. I'm setting up a keyframe called yellow fade. And whenever this animation is triggered, it's going to animate the background color from yellow to a transparent. And we can throw this animation pretty much anywhere in our app. And I'm going to set up a variable for it in case we want to attach it to more than just one CSS class. But I've already pinned it to this highlight CSS class, and I'm going to call it animation. And animation is going to take the animation we defined that highlights something in yellow. Ooh, I just went deep there on folks. Yes, I'm using CSS variables. Love that feature. It has a lot of cool uses. I'm going to use those a whole lot more in my CSS code. Add Clippy. Mr. Peter Morris. I love that. Yes. We need to do a Clippy NuGet package. Clippy NuGet package for Blazor. And then freestyle coder, Chris, you're selling yourself short, buddy. I know you can do better than that. I've seen you do better than that. What is it called? The Connect development stuff that you are doing tells me otherwise, that you are much better at these things than you let yourself on to be. So when we're on our homepage, we could play around with this highlight feature. I've got this button bar here, and what I'm going to do is that button bar is where my add favorite command lies. And I'm going to set up a string that is called highlight button bar CSS. And I need to set up a flag here that tells me, I'll set it to true just for now. We'll just say if it's true, then if it's true, we will, and this is always going to return a thing, highlight that item. If it is false, which currently we don't have any way to define false, but we'll throw a variable in here momentarily. We're going to say if something tells us, oh, Visual Studio is going to lock up. Do I have instances of the app running? I do. I swear it's something to do with that. I don't have any IIS running, so I don't know why it's going to do this, but it will recover. It will recover. Yeah, Eagle says this happens to him too. I wonder if it's something to do with the Razor compiler stuff that happens. It seems to get too busy sometimes. I was reading on GitHub today, I think it was, or no, it was the Gitter channel. The Gitter channel for Blazor, somebody said they had like an 8 gigabyte or 8 gigs or 8 megs in one of their bin files or object file folders. Yeah, everybody seems to be in agreement that this is a regular annoying occurrence with Visual Studio. I might use JetBrains Rider or VS Code again in the future if this keeps up. I was having a good run, and then it started doing it again. Anyhow, we'll highlight this. We'll throw a variable in here so we can control when it highlights. But I just want to run this real quick so you can see it actually happen. So right now it should do it. And of course, oh, I haven't used the variable I haven't used the highlight button bar. So we'll throw that here so it actually renders. And I'll rebuild that. And then we'll reload the page, and we should see the Add Favorites buttons highlight. And you can see they slowly fade out. You can change that animation speed however you like through this animation keyframe. Or sorry, the definition for it. So 8 seconds, we can tune that down to 5 and so on. And that is going to highlight for us our favorite buttons. Pretty cool. So now we need something to trigger those highlights. So what we need to do is on our favorites page, what I'd like to be able to do is on our button, we'll go ahead and throw we could pass query strings to do this. I'm not going to do a query string on the show right now because we only have like 2 minutes left and it requires like adding packages and adding some additional code. So a very short, easy way to just demonstrate how we could do this. Is to just pass a parameter off to this. This is a ugly, quick and dirty fix just for a live show. So there's better ways to queue this up. Again, a query string would be good because then you can pass multiple of these and kind of target things in the UI that you want to do this on. This is not like a fully developed solution. It's just an idea. So, or no, not a little string. Throw a string parameter at this, and we'll call it we'll call it hint, and we'll put a getter setter here. Let's go ahead and make this, whoops. Where are we getting an error? Does it want to be public? Yeah, that's what I thought. This has to be public, and we'll go ahead and make that null just in case, and then we'll say up here, hint, like that. So we'll pass a parameter along. And this is in the wrong spot. my nullable parameters in the wrong place. So we'll go ahead and pass that along. And then down here, we'll say if the hint, and what is it saying about nullable? Is it just warning me? Yeah, it's just warning me that nullables suck. We'll hint if the hint equals whatever the string is we passed. Again, query strings work better because you can be a little bit more fluid with how you're passing these along and how many of them you're passing along. So I would suggest that over this type of approach, but it requires a lot more setup. So we're at the top of the hour now. So if we get that highlight favorites, we'll go ahead and highlight the favorites. Otherwise, we won't. We'll go back and take a look. And off screen again, got to drag the monitor stuff around. So we'll refresh here. And it's not highlighting our favorites. We go back here. You don't have any favorites yet. Go home. You could also put something in the button like show me instead. Now that we have the ability to highlight, you can say show me. And then when our articles load, they're highlighting the favorites. And you're like, oh, okay, I can click here to add a favorite and here to add a favorite. And you get a favorite and everybody gets a favorite. And then our application crashes and then we load it again and there's our favorites. And again, that application crash is on purpose. It's picking a semi, it's not really random, but it's random-ish because depends on how we navigate the page, but it's about every 5th or 6th time I've got a exception being thrown on purpose to make sure we're handling our exception on that favorites page. So there we go. We've got our empty state. There's a little bit of cleanup we could probably do around what this page is showing by default. I think some of this also might be coming from the fact that I'm using Blazor server and it's doing pre-rendering, which makes some odd things happen in the UI. But ideally, we'd want this page to have nothing as it loads, just the loader on the screen, and then our empty state, or error state, or our happy state. So our pages have multiple states depending on what happens with our data loading process there. First of all, did we successfully load the data? Yes. Did the data come back with values? No. Go ahead and show the empty state. Yes. Go ahead and show the data that we got back. So there's multiple states that our UI can be in, and we want to make sure that we cover all of our bases when it comes to handling all of that stuff for user experience. So we don't have the user sitting and wondering why this has no data on the page for a moment. So we want to make sure that we carry these patterns over to all of our pages. Make sure we show a loader if there's going to be any perception of loading. Go ahead and put the Telerik loader in there. There's NuGet packages to help with that if you don't have the Telerik library. And then show your empty states if you don't have data, and then try to queue the user up if you do. Show them where you can find that, where you can add a new record. That's another thing that we didn't really discuss here. Let's get back to our empty state really quick before we end the show here, and give you one more example of what we might want to do here. We kind of covered it at the very beginning, but not within the context of our application. We talked about it on Paperly or Dropbox or something like that, where it showed, really, is this what we're going to do now? Come on, Visual Studio. I know I hit run. I know I hit run. All right. So another thing is, if this is not something we're adding from another screen, maybe this is showing our some data that we have. Maybe we have a new record pop-up box here that shows, create a new record. Maybe we click a button, or maybe the form is there for us to start a new record. You don't have any data here. Please, add a new employee. You haven't hired anyone yet. Congratulations on your new startup, but add a new user here, that type of thing. And then templates as well. If there's, if you have multiple types of documents you can add to a system, show a couple template buttons. Again, Office is really good at this. If we go into PowerPoint, we have an empty state here. It's a pretty busy one, but it is an empty PowerPoint application. So we can start with a new template, and there's multiple templates, or we can open files that we already have that we've recently created, pinned, or has been shared. So this is a good example of an empty state too. So make sure you handle those things. This is just one kind of way that you can start thinking of those things and make it a habit. Good stuff. All right. This is our Wednesday show. This is the Blazor Power Hour. And later today, we have TJ Vantel. He's going to be on talking about React. So he'll give you a heads up on what's new in React development. Tomorrow, I am going to be streaming VR gaming development from Facebook Horizon. So Facebook Horizon is a new tool or platform that's being developed by Facebook, who makes Oculus, the hardware that I also use for VR. They have a really interesting platform that they're trying to put together. It's currently in a closed beta, and I have access to it, so I'm going to share that with you tomorrow, provided it is online. I tried this last week, and the service was offline during the hour I was trying to stream it. So I will get on my VR headset tomorrow, stream that content to you all, and we'll learn about game development. And I think it's really cool for people who have never done game development before, and even people who have never done development before. And then later on, we might try some pair programming in it, because that is phenomenal as well. So if you're interested in any of that stuff, or you know somebody that wants to learn how to program, I think it's a good place to start. It is not Unity, Mr. Peter Morris. It is its own thing. So you'll have to see it to really, I think, get a grip of how it works. It is VR development that is done within the environment. So you actually go into the environment in VR, and the tools are all there in VR for you. So you're writing code in the VR world. You're creating the 3D assets in the VR world. It's both very simple and amazing at the same time. What date and time is this? We have a schedule if you scroll down on the Twitch channel, but it is tomorrow at 11:30 Eastern Standard Time. So it is approximately 20 minutes from now, but tomorrow. So I know that's probably later in the day for some of you, especially like Mr. Magoo. It's probably like dinner time or whatever, but that is the best time for the channel to air something like that. So we're going to test that time slot out, see how that works. I think you'll get a kick out of it. And if you think that Visual Studio's live share is cool, wait till you see how you pair program in this thing, because it's like live share to a whole other level. Pretty amazing stuff. So we'll be able to do the pair programming stuff this week, because I'm going to test the platform again and see if we can handle streaming, and hopefully everything stays online. But the following week, or maybe later, we'll try to get Alyssa Nycol, my partner in crime, to pair program with me in this environment, and you get to see how game engines work in a very simplistic way, and I think it's really cool. So check that out tomorrow, and then I'll have a show on Friday. I've yet to figure out what I'm going to chat about, but I'm sure I'll come up with something. We'll probably work on some of my past apps and adding maybe some of the things we talked about today with empty states to things like Blazing Coffee, or do some refactoring on Blazeport. There's a lot of things I haven't gotten to work on for personal projects that I want to get into. So we'll see you around all week is the point. Make sure you hit follow on the Code It Live channel, and we'll see you soon. Take care, everybody.